you excited to be here? Yeah. I am as well. This is an exciting topic, and it's a topic that's growing around the world. So glad that you made it, and I'm really, really excited to hear Bradley, last name? Burnham, and Joe or Joseph Jordan. And they've got some wonderful presentations. My name is Michael Morehouse. I'm a pastor at the Sandpoint Seventh-day Adventist Church up in Sandpoint. The reason that I'm connected with this series is I recently did a 5-part presentation called Aliens, Angels, and the Afterlife.
Oh, praise God.
I referenced some of your work.
Good. Yeah.
Yes, and I referenced some of Joe's work during that presentation. You can find that series, watch it for free. You can go to aliensangelsafterlife.com, and all the presentations are there. They link to the YouTube videos. So if you would like to check those out, you can. I also am producing DVDs for those who still use DVD players. So our topic is aliens, UFOs, abductions, and all of those sorts of things that are beginning to hit our world in a big way. I mean, anybody notice that you're seeing it more on the news? You're seeing it more on podcasts. It's starting to become mainstream, and it used to be a taboo topic.
Yeah.
If you mentioned that you had UFO sightings or you had been abducted, people would look at you kind of strange and maybe walk on the other side of the street. But today, more and more people are relating to these experiences. And the reason is because more and more people are legitimately having these experiences. NUFON, or NUFORC, which is the other reporting website as MUFON. You have MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and NUFORC, which is the National UFO something Reporting Center. I think that's what it's called. 170,000 sightings on NUFORC's website. They say that the majority of these sightings can be explained when you research them through professional scientists, their weather balloons or their Starlink, or it's something else. They say about 5%, though, of all of these sightings are legitimate sightings that can't be explained by anything else. 5% of 170,000, you know what that is? That's 8,500. Just on the NUFORC website. I didn't check MUFON. But these sightings, they say for every sighting that is reported, there are 10 or more that are not reported. And for the sightings that are reported or not reported, there are multiple people, groups of people that all see the same sightings. We're talking about millions of people, likely around the world, who have seen many similar sightings of UFOs, of alien encounters. So these are not just sort of things that are on the fringe that we shouldn't really be talking about. These are the sorts of things that people today, rational people, high-level people, we're talking about like the Minister of Defense for Canada. Yeah. We're talking about some high-level governmental officials. We're talking about past presidents of the United States who have seen, experienced, have witnessed some of these things. And the big question that many people want to know is, who are they or what are they? I mean, it has to be something. If it's real, there has to be an explanation. Are they extraterrestrials, as Bob Lazar says, from the star system Zeta Reticuli way out there in space, that have come with advanced technologies and knowledge? I mean, a highly evolved species from way out yonder? Or are they something more local? Are they coming up from the center of the earth? So these are questions that many people ask, and hopefully during this seminar, you'll be able to find some real rational answers to some of these questions. Perhaps you've had an experience that you would like answers for. Just a quick raise of hands. Has anybody had here would like to just raise your hand and say, I've had, or I know somebody who has had a personal experience in some way with a UFO? Yeah? Yeah, I see. It is common, and the questions are real. And I believe that when you come to the place where you find answers to these questions, it can bring some real peace, maybe closure, maybe resolution, maybe even freedom from some of the deep and dark things that you've experienced. And so with that, I just want to give a short introduction to our speakers. The first speaker this morning is going to be Bradley Burnham, Christian brother. He's the founder of the YouTube channel, Strange Normal.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody seen Strange Normal? Oh, yes. Lots have seen Strange Normal. I ran across your YouTube channel as I was preparing for this series that I was doing. I thought, wow, who is this guy? He's got a lot of crazy stuff on here. Good stuff, though. I used that video of the Polish president who speaks to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
4 years.
4 years. And it's taken you all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what I saw, your number one video on there is Starfall. Is that right?
Starfall. I think there's a video where I interviewed Walter Weiss about it, his experience.
Yeah.
That has 140,000 views. Starfall has about 80, I think, right now.
Okay. Starfall. So if you're wanting to check out his channel, I would encourage you to do that. Strange Normal, again, and check out his Starfall video, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of other great videos on there. So, Bradley, you're going to be our first presenter.
That's on YouTube, right?
On YouTube. That's right. So Brad will be our first presenter, and then we'll take a short break. And then our second presenter is Joe Jordan. And Joe, when I came across some of your material, I was just blown away. It took a lot of the pieces that were a puzzle to me and just began to fit them together. And I really believe that God led you in your research. I went on your website, which is
CE4 Research.
CE4research.com. Read a lot of the testimonies on there. Powerful, really powerful. You're going to be in for a real treat with Joe's presentation here. And he's the founder, an environmental health and safety professional for one of America's private industry rocket manufacturers. That's cool. Located at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, he's been a lifelong member of MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network. 32 years, Joe has seen and heard a lot on this topic. And he has a former state section director for Brevard County, Florida, and former national director of South Korea MUFON. Yep. And he has a new book called The Red Flag of Ufology. And that's going to be for sale for those who would like to purchase that. And you'll be sharing more about that book on ufology. And I think you have a second book there as well. So you'll have to check those out. After Brother Jordan is going to share, we're going to move into a question and answer session where you can ask any question that you would like, clarifying questions on their presentation or their opinion on whatever relates to this subject. And we'll take that question and answer time as long as we need. I believe Pastor Kim Kerr, who is local here, a pastor who worked with Amazing Facts Ministry for many years. I believe he's going to also join in that question and answer session. I'm excited for the presentations. I think without further ado, we're going to have Bradley go ahead and come up. And please, if you can, give him a warm welcome.
Good afternoon, almost, I guess. Good morning, huh? I want to talk, while this thing's coming up, and it looks like it's almost here, I was going to ask you, let's broaden it out a little bit. I want to see how many people have not just had those classic Hollywood UFO experiences. I want to know what anomalous experiences you have experienced yourself. Because it looks like there was a number of hands that went up in here. Me personally, I'll give you a little personal testimony. I haven't had a sighting of something, but what I have had is something called night paralysis. And I thought this could be medical at one time. It could not have been, but this was a time probably about 15 years ago when I was researching this stuff really heavy. And I started to experience something. I felt something very cold over me when I was sleeping. I was completely solid in bed. I couldn't move, but I could open my eyes and something was happening. I felt something very ominous, very bad was happening. And I thought, what is this? This is very strange. I know what this stuff is. I've been researching. It's not scary. I haven't read anything about night paralysis, but something was happening that was definitely, I felt spiritual, because as soon as I stopped researching and I was like, I'm going to put this away. I have a job to get. I was unemployed at the time. I have stuff to do. All of a sudden, it stopped immediately. And so I thought, what is happening here? This is definitely different. Has anybody had an experience, whether it's with something they just don't understand, doesn't make physical reality seem possible? Maybe it is a more than that. These fireballs in the sky, they've seen something they can't explain. Anything at all. Raise your hand. I just want to see that real quick. Yeah, and I think a number of us have, even as I started researching this, I was talking to my family about it. And my father said, you know what? I have seen those exact same things when I was a child. And so it blew me away to even hear my family, who I had never heard stories about this at all, from them say, yeah, that was over a military base when I was growing up as a young child. So I think as we progress into a different world, I guess a stranger normal of society, we will start seeing something that's odd and we need to have answers about it. And so that's kind of why we're putting together this thing, and to reach out to the rest of everyone and understand what this stuff is. So let's dig into this. I have primarily one thing I'm going to really dig into here. Let's start out with this. Who are they? What you have experienced, if you have experienced something, is a true event. Something has happened in your life that is real to you. It's real. Something really happened. What is it? Well, we're going to go into that. But what if I told you that who they are, if there is a they in your experience, is not what they appear to be? In fact, they have been lying to you this entire time. People have experiences. They have visions. They have levitations. This has actually been talked about in Catholicism, believe it or not, even about and also other Eastern religions, if you go back that far, beyond the scope of this discussion. But they have been paralyzed. They have seen drones, or what they thought was drones. They have seen something in the sky called UAP. That's what everything is being classified as. And indeed, some of them are legitimate. Some of them are government, and some of them are not. We're going to go into that a little bit. The government, the ones that they don't know, they have no idea what this stuff is. It's particularly the ones that are fireballs in the sky, and they've said that under oath. However, this is not a seminar that asks questions. This is something that's going to give answers. It's one of the, I like to say, when I talk about this on YouTube, there's many people that talk about UFOs and all kinds of crazy stuff on YouTube. It's not crazy. It doesn't make you crazy, but it seems a little bit odd. And so when people are experiencing this stuff, they are kind of pushed to the side of society, and it has been that way for a purpose. I'm going to go into that a little bit later as well. But these questions that people have about this stuff, I want to give you a solid answer on what is happening here and what is going to happen in the future about this stuff. So let's look at current events. What have you seen? What have you experienced? Well, these are some of the things that people report. They say there have been presidential confessions, UAP in the news. Recently, there's a documentary that came out just Friday, and it's a big, big deal. And so it's all over the news right now. You probably see news clips from mainstream media talking about this. Particularly, you'll see news clips on the internet from News Nation, who is very interested in this. But ABC, CBS, NBC, they're all the major ones are going to cover at least a snippet of this. You'll see this next week. But you see lights in the sky, night paralysis, some levitation, some experiences that people just don't quite understand what it is. And so what I'm going to show you now is kind of what people have seen. And this might be a review for some people, but I'm going to try to get everyone caught up on the same page here as we go into the new stuff. This is interesting. This is from mainstream media, and this is what they're saying. There.
Welcome back. Only on 12 News at 6, police chasing a drone across the city at more than 100 miles an hour.
According to the police report, this was far beyond a commercially available drone like this one. Nobody has any idea who was flying it or why.
There are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
Tucson PD put up their helicopter to find it. They circled at least 14 times, going 100 miles an hour. And the drone kept evading them, even circling the chopper at that speed. Finally, one of the pilots said the thing went over the top of Mount Lemmon, more than 14,000 feet up. That's when the helicopter started running out of gas, but the drone was still going more than an hour later.
An orange light glowing brightly and moving quickly from the southwest headed northeast.
What is that?
Whatever that was captured in this video by Kyle resident Sal Sanchez.
And I was reporting it the whole time, just thinking, what is this thing?
This was taken late last month, but it's not the first or only time he's seen it. The first time was in January.
It looks like a fireball, but with no noise.
Though he doesn't have it on video, he says this Sunday night was the most dramatic.
Light show like you wouldn't believe. I mean, you have to have been here to see it. One right up another.
Sanchez says from what he's seen and heard or not heard, there's no way it's a drone.
So many videos that are out there that depict the same thing that I've been seeing.
And this is what people are saying up there. This is actually from the U.S. Navy. This is declassified footage of this fireball in the sky. Sometimes they say they see a fireball. Sometimes it's what they think of a tic tac, this little white object in the sky that seems to be about 40 feet wide. They say these things they seem to break physics. This is the tic tac video, and they're not exactly sure what it is. The government says primarily they don't know what the fireball is. They haven't said much about the Tic Tac part yet. But what's interesting to me is that this thing seems to evade our most classified planes. They seem to evade and they hang around some of the most classified war material, things that destroy, things that are privy to the damage that things can do to Earth. The origins of communication. This is where it gets kind of strange because what's going on here? There's a lot of people like Chris Bledsoe. I talked about him in another presentation. You can find more information about that on my YouTube channel. But Chris Bledsoe had received some communication from these things, and a lot of people are saying that they also apparently can communicate with these fireballs in the sky. Now, how is that done? Well, we have answers for that. And it's interesting where this came from, because although you think that this was just developed in your lifetime, this goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But right now, it's called what's called CE5, not to be confused with CE4 research, which is the speaker that's coming up next. CE5 is called Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, and it's a bunch of different types or codes that ufologists use to classify different ideas that have. For instance, Close Encounter of the First Kind is a UFO that has been sighted and is in close range but no interaction with the environment. CE2 is UFO sighted in close range with physical effects that has been seen. CE3 is sighted with close range with some kind of, it appears, intelligence or occupant of some kind. CE4 is some kind of understanding of, and actually, I'm going to ask Joe, what is CE4 according to your understanding and definition? What is the
Now they termed it reality transformation.
reality transformation? Okay, so it's something that has changed the reality or perception of what's going on around you. Very interesting. And CE5, which is what this guy has termed a way to communicate with these things, is an experience or contact with these things. There's actually CE6 and CE7 according to this, but we're not going to go into that because that's going to open up a whole other bunch of questions. If you can't think of a question to ask at the end, that's probably one you can ask. But Dr. Stephen Greer, he believes that he has found a way in our lifetime to communicate with these things. Let's go into what he understands about this and what it actually is real quick. This has been known as transcendental meditation from a long time ago. This method that Greer developed is actually a part of an ancient Eastern religion called transcendental meditation, which uses repetitive phrases called mantras to achieve an beta wave mindset, some call an open mind. And so this goes way back, though. Mantra repetition, breathing, synchronization, mental state to open your mind, and that's what they say, but it actually is just putting you to more of a sleep, which is the exact opposite of what it's doing, and non-local connection. Let's look at this for a second and go back in history, because as far back as we can figure right now this is the most seen in Egypt. If you go back and study Egyptian understanding of things, this is what was shown. This is back in 1550 through 1070 BC. Egyptian priests practiced heart silencing. They called it ibshitib. I'm not a Egyptologist, so I speak it. But the Egyptians did not use the modern word mind. They used the word heart, ib. This meant thoughts, conscious or inner reasoning, spiritual perception, in other words. They wanted to quiet the heart, quiet what you feel. This phrase that I just said literally means to make the heart still, to quiet the inner thoughts, or it could also be used as ecstasy silence or state of peaceful emptiness is what they used to say. This was a ritual prerequisite for entering a temple. This was paganism back in the day, performing sacred rites, receiving messages from God, their gods back then, and performing dream incubations. This is remarkably close to what CE5 or today's standard is called quieting of the mind before contact, which is actually very dangerous. It's very interesting because this is a part of major religions from 500 BC down to 100 BC, and even now, in the most recent, is before CE5 was theosophy. Anybody know what theosophy is? Very interesting, because theosophy, it used this exact same thing. Isn't that interesting? So this theosophy, as developed by Helena Blavatsky, man, I can't even say the word today. Blavatsky, thank you, introduced the concept of spirit beings and ascended masters, such as these entities can communicate with humanity. Over time, these beings have been identified as extraterrestrial beings influencing the dialogue around spiritual communication through meditation. So this is something that is not new. That's what I'm getting at here, right? Does everyone understand that? When someone comes up to you and says, "Oh yeah, you can communicate with these things," you can say, "No, you can't communicate with these things." Well, you can communicate with them, but they are not what you think they are. In most cases, they are being deceptive. I'm going to show you some of the quotes from actual ufologists of today that tell you that. So, but before we do that, let's go on a little bit of her teachings. Masters or ascended beings. Blavatsky emphasized that the existence of masters or ascended beings who are believed to possess superior knowledge and superior wisdom. They contact through meditation. Contacting these ascended masters often involves practices such as meditation, visualization techniques, including the same methods as the other two religions of early centuries. And unity of humanity's evolution. Blavatsky proposed that the teachings of the Ascended Masters were crucial to humanity's progression. She warned that unity among mankind is essentially suggesting that without collaboration, without the joining together of humanity, particularly in religions, without the joining together of in collaboration, humanity could face dire consequences such as global catastrophes. Boy, this is the exact same thing that we hear from the UFO movement. It's interesting that she was having this experience, and they were too, isn't it? Same message. And in fact, Blavatsky says about religion, this is interesting. So I actually asked ChatGPT, I said, is Blavatsky a Christian? I just wanted to know. And it said, well, she doesn't say she's a Christian. In fact, she did say at one time she was leaning towards that. But look what she says about Christianity. I think this is interesting. She says in her books, The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, the pages are on the screen, says Satan is the divine power that that made humans into gods. Boy, that's interesting, because I can think of an actual Bible verse that says otherwise. I think that's what the snake said to Eve. We're going to go into that in a second. But it is Lucifer, she says, who opens the minds of the blind. She said also that Lucifer is the Logos, the serpent, the savior. Dangerous, I think, being a Christian personally myself. So contacting these entities, the parallels with fallen angels are extreme. The serpent in Genesis represents the archetype of the deception, encouraging humanity to seek knowledge and power outside of divine guidance, just as Eve was tempted to become like God, knowing good and evil. Modern encounters with entities often promise enlightenment and empowerment, in the same phrase. So who are these beings? Well, let's really get it out here and really look into this and dive into this further. So the way of contacting these beings is the same way someone would contact a bad or negative entity, which the Bible calls a fallen angel. These are also called demons in the Bible. Good angels and bad angels in the Bible have the same powers given by God and allowed by God, but different morals and values. There's a lot of people that think demons and fallen angels are very different. But the Bible is very clear that they've given different names to these things as you go down. For instance, the snake is also called the serpent, and also called the dragon, is also called the devil or Satan. Lucifer changed his name from Lucifer to Satan when he took on the idea that he can be against God. So what is their message? What is fascinating is that the message given to recipients of UFO experiences is exactly the same as someone who would receive messages from masters. The masters, Blavatsky. Yes, am I saying that right? Blavatsky. It's a law. Yeah, I read this stuff, and often I don't say it enough. So Blavatsky is saying messages from beyond. This is interesting. Look at this. This is what they say. There will be an evolution of consciousness. This is what the ufology says. Experiencers will often report consistent messages surrounding an impeding transformation of human consciousness. They say humanity will soon take an evolutionary leap or leap to Godhead or unity. Many experiencers claim to have received messages indicating that humanity is on the verge of a profound evolutionary leap. We are scientists from another planet. Believe it or not, that there is a very large movement of ufology that is called the Raelian movement. Raelian is given because they believe that these things came down and said they were scientists from a long ways away, and they said, "Have you read the Bible?" They told the leader of this movement, and he says, "I haven't, but I've been wanting to know so much about the Bible." And they said, "Let me tell you about the Bible." And they went ahead and reinterpreted the whole thing. They called them the Raelian movement, and they said the reason why they call them Raelian is because they told him, "You will not be called your name anymore. You will be called Rael because you are the new Israel." Understand? Interesting, huh? So these things, calling themselves scientists from a long ways away, are putting out the idea that they are scientists from another planet. They say Earth will soon experience environmental changes. They say that Earth will soon experience nuclear war. They say Jesus is one of the many advanced teachers, just like Buddha, Krishna, and all the other gods. This is what they say. And some encounters suggest that Jesus is portrayed as one among many advanced teachers, or even as an extraterrestrial avatar, which raises theological questions to challenge traditional beliefs and the singularity of Christ's role in human salvation. So they're here primarily, and it seems that they're only attacking a Christian idea of things, right? They never attack Buddhism. They don't attack Hinduism. They don't attack the major religions of the world. They seem to only focus on Jesus. What do they have with Jesus? If these things are real and they're from another planet, which I personally don't believe, they are attacking Christianity. There's some beef they have with Christianity. So let's explore these parallels real quick. The parallels between messages from these ETs and those described in theosophical teachings raise significant questions. Both sources share themes of elevated consciousness, call for unity, and apocalyptic suggestions, but that's not the only similarity between these experiences. This is the most interesting to me. In contemplating, in discussions about the paranormal, many individuals report encounters, and Joe is going to talk about this a little bit more, about this experience, involving apparitions of deceased loved ones or figures from the past. These apparitions often raise questions about the nature of life after death and the possibility of communication from deceased and psychological implications surrounding these type of experiences. It's really interesting what you see, because the few experiences I have seen deeply involve somebody as a control mechanism when they want you to do something that's against Christianity. It seems that they're always attacking Christianity, particularly Christians. In fact, I have some examples. I'm not just saying this up here. I have some actual examples of what I mean by this. I think they're coming up here in a second. But first, I'm going to talk about Whitney Strieber. Whitney is an American author best known for his 1987 book, Communion. You might have heard of it if you've done your research on this. It's one of the most common and prevalent books in which he claims to have undergone encounters with non-human entities that many interpret as abductions. His experiences and writings have made him a major figure in UFO and paranormal culture, blending personal testimony with spiritual, psychological with metaphysical interpretations. This is something from his personal YouTube channel as they discuss his experiences that he didn't write about in his book. Listen to what they say about this.
Just using Whitley for an example, on the night he had his first experience, he also saw his deceased college roommate or a friend in the room, right? And he even left that out of the original story, the original Communion, because it didn't make sense with the rest of what happened, right? Because if these were extraterrestrials, why is there an apparition of this dead friend there? But the more you look at these stories, those things happen, right? Sometimes they're seeing these non-human entities, they're appearing, and then there's also, their deceased uncle is there as well.
And so it is substantiated by people saying they've seen loved ones on these crafts or near these crafts.
In Masquerade, those of you that have read the story, you may recall that I woke up in bed and there was the deceased godmother of my friend standing at the foot of the bed giving me directions. But I have learned over the years my experience with these so-called aliens are demonic.
Interesting. That one that has had the experience and he has researched this has said, I think these are demonic. It's interesting that people are coming to us. And by the way, these clips come from Joe Jordan's research on this. He's given me quite a bit to go on, because when I started putting this together, I was like, wait a second here. I'm told, through what I understand and what I've seen in the Bible, that there is a real connection between the dead and something that happens with demonic entities. If these are appearing, we know that the Bible is very clear about what happens after death. Ecclesiastes 9:5 says, the dead know not anything. That's interesting, huh? So who are the dead? And so if you read through this, there's an overarching story of the whole Bible. If you read from Genesis to Revelation, well, even just the Old Testament, you hear about something called Israel. And Israel was a man, but also was a group of people as well. And so this group of people, as they went down through their journey, it's a long journey, but they went down through it. The Bible talks about it. This is what it kind of says about it. And I'm going to put these 4 verses quickly on the screen. It says, "Now Israel remained in Acacia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab." In other words, they saw that there was some women they wanted, and they went after them, and they brought their religion into that. And they invited these people to the sacrifices of their gods. And the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel was joined to Baal of Peor. And the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. In other words, hey, you're not supposed to serve another god. God said in his 10 commandments, this is the contract. In other words, he made with Israel. He said, look, I want to tell you that you got to serve me. I don't want you to serve all these other gods that all these other people serve. I want you to focus just on me because I made you. These other things didn't make you. They don't deserve your worship. But he said they were enticed to go serve these other things. Well, what are these other gods? These are the other gods I believe that they were also communicating with in the same manner that they used with the CE5 stuff today. So they joined themselves, this is from Psalms 106, talking about the same story. They joined themselves also to Baal or Peor and ate sacrifices made to the dead. So during this time when they were serving Baal, Israel also was serving what they thought were the spirits of dead people that would appear through serving these, I'm going to say, false gods right now. We can find out a little bit more about what those things are in the next verse in the New Testament. 1 Corinthians 10:20 says, "Rather that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to what? Demons. Demons. Not to God, and I do not want you to have fellowship with demons." 1 Corinthians 10:20. "For they are spirits of demons." So this is what happened. When they had all these things that were coming down, God said, look, we have a problem in the spiritual realm. I say there's a veil that's covering what we understand, and because we can only see what's happening in the physical life right now. But something else, a great controversy, a very a court case, I guess you can call it the cosmic court case, is happening right now. And you have a big debate over whether or not God, the universe God, is a true God or not, and whether he is righteous in what he is choosing. So he is on trial, and all this stuff, all these gods say, well, I can be just like God. I can show these people they can serve me, and I'll take them away from you, God. And so what happened? Well, this exact phenomenon is going to happen at the end of time, because Satan, the devil, and these minions have no new way of tricking people. They use the exact same tactics because they know it works. "For they are spirits of demons," it says in Revelation 16:14, "performing signs," those exact same signs that happened back then, "which go out to the kings of the earth and to the whole world to gather them for the battle of the great day of God Almighty." That's the second coming, folks. So what is the role? And this is something we're going to go into in the second half of this with Joe. The role of Jesus' name in these spiritual encounters is remarkable because Joe has real life testimony and experiences of showing that people have come to him and said that we've reached out to Krishna, we've reached out to Buddha, we've reached out to all these different gods of different religions, but the only one that saves us from this experience immediately is calling out in the name of Jesus Christ. Isn't that interesting? So is this something tied together with this religion? This is kind of where I'm going with this. I think this is a spiritual experience rather than something that is extraterrestrial from a long ways away. This is what's happening. And this is the evidence that we have that these things that you might have experienced are deceiving you. Because UFO authors that you know very well, the most prominent being Jacques Vallée. He is still alive today, and he has done a lot of research on this from a very logical standpoint. He's a computer scientist. And he says, look, this is what he says. Humans, human beings under the control of a strange force that bends them in absurd ways, proverbially, forcing them to play a role in a bizarre game of deception. So he said this is a deceiving game. He also says, what we see in effect here is not an alien invasion. It is a control system which acts on humans and uses humans. Jacques Vallée is not Christian, but he's looking at these experiences and going, this doesn't seem right. Something logically incorrect here. And he says, modern humans talk about spacecraft and aliens and people in the Middle Ages. in the Middle Ages, people have talked about angels and demons and fairies. UFO stories behave like religious apparitions. That's really saying something, I think. And that's not the only one that says that. Whitney Strieber says, whatever was there seems so monstrous, ugly, so filthy and dark and sinister. Of course they were demons. They had to be. So what's interesting about that is, though, this devil can deceive you in many ways. And he can actually he can actually appear as if he is very, very dark and very evil. But what we've seen during this research and understanding this and looking through the Bible and seeing actual former occult members that have come back and they are Christian now. They said these things are not ugly. These things are beautiful. They pretend to be ugly so that when they do appear someday, we don't recognize them as devils and evil. He says our souls are, this is from Whitney Strieber again, our souls are the only thing that matter to them, and that the visitors, as he puts in quotes, know that. They really are interested in your soul. Your soul is you, it's your body. That's who they're interested in. And that's not the only clue. This is Stanford medical professor Gary Nolan. He's a guy that's alive today, just like a couple of these authors. Gary is a professor at Stanford University. He has conducted extensive research into the unexplained aerial phenomenon, or UAP, what they call it today. And by the way, the government decided to call it UAP now, and they don't call it UFOs anymore, because UFO could be anything. It could be a plane that's not identifying itself to its ADS-B. It could be just some object that they can't figure out what's up there. But UAP primarily is the things that are anomalous and that break physics. And they said they also got rid of the name UFO out of their terminology when talking about this stuff in the government, because they wanted to separate it from little green men. They don't want to talk about extraterrestrials. They want to talk about something they can't explain that's here on Earth right now. And that way they don't get the snickers and the jokes and the setting aside of things in meetings, so they can continue to talk about this on a more of a physics basis, is what they're trying to do. And anyway, a Stanford medical professor says that he has drawn connections between these experiences and the psychological effects on individuals. His work suggests that the phenomenon may have significant implications for human health and consciousness, urging a deeper understanding of these encounters through a scientific lens. Listen to this.
Whatever the phenomenon is, it's capable of manipulating human perception, human consciousness.
Right.
It can make us see things that aren't there.
I mean, the best example of this that I know is a story that Jacques Villay brought to me of a family in France driving down the highway. This was like in the last 5 to 10 years. And they had a glass-topped car. And they look up and they see a UFO, basically paralleling them down the highway. The mother looks around and sees no other individuals nearby are freaking out about this thing above them. The children in the back take out their cell phones, take a picture of it. They get home and they look at the pictures on their camera and they don't see an object. They see a little star-shaped thing about 30 so feet above it. And I have the picture. Even if it was an object, that was there. Others weren't capable of seeing it, so it was manipulating vision. So yes, is the short answer.
So it manipulates vision. What else in the Bible manipulates vision? I think that's interesting, because these concepts have been around for ages and ages. It's just that right now in our life, we haven't seen much of that. But this is coming to pass. This is happening now. And they're saying they're seeing these things, stars in the sky, that if you go take a little fireball and go a little higher, it looks like a star. That's essentially what our sun is, right? It's a fireball, a giant fireball in the sky. And so what they're saying that, hey, we see these stars in the heavens, which ironically, the Bible identifies as angels, the good and the bad ones. So it's coming together more of a clear picture of what these things actually are. Biblical accounts of divine encounters. This is a passage from 2 Kings 6:14 through 17. The servants of the prophet Elijah surrounded by the enemies. However, Elijah reassures them, the servants, that they are not alone. Listen to this, what it says here. This is from 2 Kings, and it says that augmented reality or visions, understanding the veil that has been lifted, can happen. And so spiritual entities have the power to do that. And so we need to think about that when we're looking at this perspective, not go to other sources, but go back to the Bible, because this is the ancient book that actually has all the answers already. It says in 2 Kings, therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there. And they came by night and surrounded the city. And there was a servant of man of God rose early and went out. There was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, alas, master, what shall we do? So he answered, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. This is Elisha the prophet. This is the one God was talking to. And he said, Lord, he prayed to God in heaven. He said, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots and fire all around Elisha. Now, you think that angels, these advanced beings of heaven, are sitting there on invisible horses to help fight their war? I don't think so. But I know that God's going to give us exactly what we need to not fear. And so this is interesting that they are given at that time something in their mind to allow them to not fear what's happening. If angels can do that, the good ones, if God can allow them to give us a vision, I believe so can demonic entities as well. So very, very careful what you see and what you believe about this stuff if you have had one of these visions. So why is this relevant? Let's really get down to the dirt here. If you compare the modern biblical text to what UFO community is experiencing today, this is exactly what the modern Christian scholars describe as a spiritual event in physical life. In this case, a deceptive one. The following is attributed to an angelic power. Telepathy. And we have biblical analysis of this. Look at Isaiah 30:21 says, thine ears shall hear the word behind thee, saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. In other words, you can hear God without actually hearing. God can talk to you. That's what some people call telepathy. But you hear something in your head. Or Nehemiah 2:12, I told no one what my God had put into my heart. Can God instill things inside your heart? I believe so. And so this is a form of talking that isn't audible. These are concepts that are biblical that are coming around to us today, and people are going, look, this thing is happening to us. No, us Christians understand what's happening. They undermine core biblical teachings. It says in 1 Timothy 4:1, the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times, some will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. There will be sudden apparitions, the Bible says, John 20:19, and then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and said unto them, peace be unto you. Interesting. So he can just suddenly appear where they are. So can we have sudden apparitions that appear to us? And can they appear as our dead relatives? I do believe so. They can deceive us. And that is what these deceiving spirits can do. So be very careful what you believe about this. Malevolent behavior. Satan deceives the whole world, Revelation says, and there is no truth in him. He is a liar. John 8:44. Jesus' name stops the experience. We're going to talk more about that with Joe. And Mark says that this does happen. It's in the Bible. My name, they will cast out demons. This is all by the name of Jesus Christ. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. And if you're having experiences, if you're having issues, if stuff are floating around your house, if you're having an anomalous experience in your life, you know what will stop it? Jesus' name. Having that relationship with him, that's what will fix this whole thing. So think about that as you go home today, if you have anybody that you know has had these experiences. And supernatural sights. Luke 21:11 says there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. The powers of heaven will be shaken. Things are going to happen around us that we really can't explain, that has never happened before. And so just as the government is saying on the news right now that there are 5 observables that break physics, this is what they're saying.
So we realized early on in the government that these things had 5 parameters, 5 observables that made them stand out away from everything else. And so the first one was instantaneous acceleration. A human being can withstand up to 9 Gs for a very short period of time. One of our most highly maneuverable aircraft is an older aircraft. It's called the General Dynamics F-16. You can pull about 17 Gs before you start having structural failure, meaning wings snap off. What we are seeing are objects that are performing in excesses of 2,000 and 3,000 G-forces. Okay. Well beyond the healthy limitations of anything biological. The second observable is hypersonic velocity. So what is hypersonic? Hypersonics are those speeds in excess of Mach 5 or above. We are seeing things doing in excess of 10,000, 13,000 miles an hour and executing immediate right-hand turns and even 180s, right? Another observable, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but it's called low observability, meaning you'll hear from the pilots, I was there, I saw it, but I can't describe it. Didn't have wings, didn't have rudder, a tail, anything, no rivets, nothing. And then also on the radar, you will get these nonsensical returns. This is a little more than that because it's actually also, with the human eye, very hard to discern. The fourth observable is something called transmedium or multi-medium travel. So that means the ability to operate in multiple domains, or more specifically, multiple environments. Now, once again, do we have multi-domain vehicles? Absolutely. A seaplane is a perfect example. A seaplane is neither a really good airplane or a good boat. And why? Because there are design compromises that have to be made in performance and design in order for it to operate in multiple domains. These things can operate in multiple different domains. They can operate in air, underwater, and possibly even space, but they don't have that performance and design sacrifice that we have to do with our technology.
So do you see, is this stuff interesting? Is this interesting? Yeah. Lots of things happening right now, and that's happening in our lifetime. So the focus is on changing Christianity. That seems to be the focus on looking at these things, and this is what happens. These verses that we just went over warn of spiritual dangers and deceptions that may arise in the latter times, urging believers to remain vigilant and against false teachings. The coming of the lawless one, this is 2 Thessalonians 2:9-10, is in accordance with the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. This is what's coming in the future. This is a prophecy in the Bible. And with all this deception among those who perish because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. You don't have a foundation in God first, then you might be deceived by this. I mean, not you just might. You will, because you have to understand where this stuff's coming from first before you understand the whole truth behind it on top up here that's being seen, because these things aren't revealing the whole truth. It says in 1 Timothy 4, now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter time, some will depart from the faith and even giving heed to spirits and doctrines of demons. This is exactly what this is talking about. When a spirit comes to you and says, hey, let's reinterpret the Bible, I'm a scientist from a long ways away, you know that this is going to give doctrines of demons. This is a spirit that is doing this exact same thing. A long time ago, maybe about 40 years ago now, there was a man that became a Christian after he experienced some of this stuff firsthand. A well-known musician in his city of Montreal, Canada, came to him and said, hey, we want you to be a part of a much bigger thing, and you can have all the money, all the fame, everything you want. All you have to do is come to my meetings with me. And he was being groomed to join a well-known Luciferian group up there that really actually worshiped these manifestations of beautiful angels, fallen angels. And so he said it terrified him so much. He said over the course of time, he sought out Bible studies, and he wanted someone to teach him more about the Bible. And this is what happened. He said while he was doing this ritual with these folks, he said he actually discovered that they told him what would happen with this UFO movement. Listen to what his satanic priest told him.
Then the priest told us, we talked for quite a while. And then he said, could I have a little bit more? Your time I want to do very fascinating. He says the grain plane, the master's grain plane, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves, we were deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plane is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because it says demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously properly is done to avoid it. And went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences. He went on explaining about the fact that their spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause them to enter into a higher state of existence. For instance, he said their spirits will promise, and this is a big word, promise, that if their recommendations are followed carefully, they will usher in a glorious new age of peace and prosperity. And there'll be, there'll be no more wars. See? There'll be no more famines. There'll be no more people getting unhappy with one another. Neighbors will love neighbor. And social unrest will not take place no more. There'll be perfect happiness for 1,000 years. So the Spirit is going to promise.
Perfect happiness for 1,000 years. That's also called the Age of Aquarius in the New Age movement. This has been around for quite a while. And the interesting thing about that is you can find the 1,000 years in the Bible, but the location of the 1,000 years is off. Because what happens is, according to the Bible, Christ comes down, takes his people away in a rapture, taken, not a secret one, but takes his people away, and then spends 1,000 years in heaven. So if you're confused by this, chances are you're going to be serving the Antichrist, saying the whole thing, because he's here on earth during this period of time, saying that he's trying to give peace, prosperity to the earth. So if anybody tells you that, oh, by the way, you can have peace on earth for 1,000 years, all you have to do is follow this entity that's over here or over there, don't follow them. This is not the truth. So we've listened to a lot of different authors, and I want to give one slide for an author that I think has the right idea in this, and she says something about this. If you want to get this book, it's called The Great Controversy. I believe it has the best understanding of overall view of Christian history. One of the things she says was about this right here. This is really interesting. She says in The Great Controversy, page 552, she says, when they have been led to believe that the dead actually return to communicate with them, they claim to be happy in heaven. They occupy exalted positions there. And thus error is widely taught that there's no difference between the righteous and the wicked. And this is what's happening in the future. She says the pretended visitants from the world of the spirits. What? So she says these things that are pretending to be visitants from the world of the spirits, they sometimes utter cautions and warnings which prove to be correct. And then as confidence is gained, they present doctrines that directly undermine faith in the scriptures. She says that's coming. Now, what happened previously? Because if this is how they're going to trick us today, chances are this is also how they tricked the early Hebrews as well. It says in the days of the Hebrews, there was a class of people who claimed, as do the spiritualists today, to hold communion with the dead. But the familiar spirits, as these visitants from other worlds were called. So what were they calling themselves? Pretended visitants from other worlds, just as they're going to do in the future, she says. And they declared by the Bible to be spirits of devils. So all throughout Christianity, all throughout Scripture, all throughout what people have even seen, this is from the 1800s in the past, people have seen that this is absolutely going to be a huge deception of people or of things, entities that believe they're going to come from a long ways away. So who are you? Now that we know who they are, who are you? Well, you're created in the image of God. Humans are created in God's image and with dominion over the earth. Not a cosmic accident. The Bible teaches that humanity are not mere cosmic accidents, but they are intricate design beings with purpose and destiny, responsible for the stewardship of earth. Every hair on their head is numbered. Matthew 10:30. That's how much we're loved. And that's how much God wants to have us with him. We're created a little lower than the angels. That's and crowned with the glory and honor and given and authority over the works of God's hands here. Crowned with glory and honor, that it says the crowned beings, humans, are endowed with glory and honor, called to reflect God's majesty and act as ambassadors of his kingdom on earth. So that's who you are. And I think it's important that if you do experience these things, don't talk to them. Don't reach out to them. You don't want to have anything to do with these things. But if you're confused and you see something happening on the news, there is a test to understand if it's true or not. 1 John 4:1-3 says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world, and by this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God." 1 John 4:1-3. So, I want to tell you that this is the better story. You are not cattle, as the ufology would say. You are not some cosmic accident or from the cosmic empire. You are created in the image of an all-seeing, all-knowing God. Your destiny is not to merge into vague cosmic conspiracies or consciousness. Someday, to be raised immortal, someday you will be raised immortal. And if you die here on earth, I believe that there is something coming very soon that will take us away. That's God. He will take us away, and hopefully I will be part of that kingdom that doesn't get to see death. But God is real, folks. And I want you, my appeal to you is that you take the Bible and read it close and understand it, because this is the truth, and it's the foundation of what we're going to be seeing a lot more of, and what we currently are seeing in the government right now. So, as a summary, what does this match? The behavior matches, the message match, the abilities match, the motive matches, the reactions to Jesus match, end time purpose matches these demonic entities as these ETs or UAP, whatever you want to call them. So whose contact protocol will you trust? CE5 meditation or Jesus' name, obedience to his word, and the indwelling of the Holy Spirit? My hope is that you will choose the Bible.
Amen.
That's all I have to say.